All right, you sit down to play, you got your guitar, you're ready to jam, and then nothing. Your brain goes blank, your fingers freeze. It's like everything that you've learned up to this point just went right out the window. And I know that feeling because I've been there, believe me. You feel frustrated, stuck, like you're just not wired to be an improviser. But here's the truth, your fingers aren't the problem. What's happening is your brain is sabotaging you. And until you fix that, you'll keep freezing up no matter how much you practice. So in this lesson, I'll show you exactly why this happens, and I'll give you an exercise that instantly rewires your brain so that you can play freely and confidently. Oh, and I've got something here that's going to make things even easier for you. But I'll show you how to get it at the very end of the video. First, let's get you past this roadblock once and for all, shall we? So let's talk about why your brain locks up when you go to improvise. You spend all this time learning these scale patterns, chords, the cage system, all that important stuff, but then when it comes time to play, you don't even really know what to do, right? And the simple answer is because you're overloaded. You got way too many options and you don't even know where to start, which is pretty much the perfect recipe for overthinking. And I would know, I am very much an overthinker when it comes to playing and life in general. The secret, we need to bypass our thinking brain and instead tap into our instinctive subconscious brain so we can get into that flow state when we're playing. So instead of playing like this, we want to sound more like this. So now let's get into that exercise that's going to help you get in that flow state when you're improvising. It's pretty simple, and I call it the one note exercise because that's exactly what we're going to focus on. One note. So immediately we're going to stop thinking about scales. We're going to stop thinking about everything else that you know up to this point. Just let it take a backseat for a second, and we're just going to focus on one note. We can do that, right? So it works like this. We're going to take one note, like the root note, for example, which can't go wrong with that. In this case, we're playing in the key of G major, so we're going to focus on this root note right here, which is on the 8th fret of the B string. That is a G note. So that's all we're going to care about for this exercise. So what we're going to do with this note is we're basically going to express it in a multitude of different ways because there's more than one way to play a single note. It's true. You know, you can obviously play it just like this and let it ring, but there's all kinds of little things that you can add to give a little bit more life into just playing that single note. So what we're going to do to spice up this one note is throw in guitar linguistics, things like slides, bends, vibrato, hammer-ons, pull-offs, all those little techniques that add character and a vocal quality to your playing. So let's start with slides. If we want to use some slides with this note, we can do something like this, something as simple as just like a big old slide starting, you know, kind of lower on the fretboard and working our way up. So that way that note is sliding in like Tom Cruise in Risky Business, you know? That's one way, and it doesn't have to be a big slide. It can be a short one. It's important to take note of the subtleties with something like sliding a long ways or a short ways. They each kind of got their own thing, and you don't have to slide up. You can slide down. You can start from up here. That's something that like guitar players like Steve Vai would do a lot, like give it that kind of like whimpery kind of sound, you know. And same thing, you could slide from like way up the fretboard down or from a shorter distance. You know, so right there, that's technically 4 different ways you can play that single note just using slides alone. Now let's take a look at bends. We could start from, let's say, a lower note that's like, you know, 1 semitone or 1 fret lower and bend into it. Making sure that intonation is just right. Or we can do, we can kind of overshoot the note with a higher bend and then bring it down. Starts to get very vocal, very singy, you know? That's what's great about these techniques is they're pretty simple, right? We're not doing anything groundbreaking. We're still focusing on one note. We're just kind of dancing around it using these guitar linguistics. But already we've just covered 6 different ways that you can play this one single note, and we're not even done with all the techniques yet. There's also vibrato, right? We can do slow, wide vibrato. Or we can do kind of a shakier, medium vibrato. or even a really, really fast vibrato. Each one's got its vibe, right? We're really racking up all these different ways you can play a single note, right? So again, this exercise is meant to just cut out all the noise, all the extra stuff that we got floating around in our heads. Just put all the focus. It's like you have to force yourself even, because you may think, oh man, one note, like I can't make it one note sound interesting. Yes, you can. I promise you can. But you do have to force yourself. You may have to it may feel uncomfortable. It may even feel a little silly at first. But I'm telling you, that's the whole point of this exercise, is just to cut out all the other stuff, just like silence the noise, focus on one note, because it's easy to hone in on just one note. So if we do that and we focus on these different techniques, like for example, we can do hammer-ons, or like a trill where we're doing hammer-on and pull-off. So like something like this. So we're utilizing another note, but we're still focusing on that one note. That's still like our home base, right? You can do a trill like that, or even a trill from below. You know, and it doesn't have to be a fast trill. It can be. And then again, there's all these other techniques you can throw in, right? So we could do like a trill into a bend with some vibrato at the end. Let's try that. Right? Like that totally works. Almost think of it like you're a chef at like a Michelin star restaurant. I mean, of course, I'm going to use a food analogy. You know, I do like food. But you could say like this, like, here's a root note prepared 10 ways, right? So look at it that way. Like you have that one note, but you're literally preparing it 10 ways by applying these different guitar linguistic techniques. And even though it's just one note, okay, if you were to just play like this, that's just kind of whatever. It's a little uninspiring, you know, but if you were to do something like this, you're still putting that focus on that one note, but just dancing around it with all these other techniques. And it's like you've now made that one note sound way more interesting. Now, even with this exercise, it's still possible to think, I don't know what to do. Should I start with a bend? Should I start with a vibrato? Should I start with a hammer-on? You know, that can still happen. And I thought about that. So the next step you want to take with this exercise to deal with that is the call and response approach. You don't need to know what to play next. You just need to listen to what you already played. I'm going to throw that G major backing track back on, and I'm going to show you this call and response approach, still playing the one note and using those guitar linguistics. We'll start with a really simple call lick, you know. Like, hey, what's up? And I'll respond with nothing. Want to go get Thai food? Sure, I'll meet you there at 4. I'm talking just real simple, like think of the most innocuous conversation in your head, but just play it out, you know, have fun with it. So again, the point of this exercise is not to put any pressure on yourself as far as using a bunch of scales, using a bunch of notes even. Just like keep it really, really simple and force yourself to pull some creative ideas out of using that single note. Just use those guitar linguistics. You might pick a favorite, right? There may be a favorite way that you like to do it, and then just really hammer that in, really work on that. And you'll find that you're actually coming up with something way more musical than just sitting there frozen, not even knowing what to play. Oh, and here's an extra pro tip. You know, the number one fear that makes you freeze up is worrying about playing the wrong notes. So what you can do is next time you find yourself playing a wrong note, understand this. You're always within 1 to 2 frets of a correct note, or a note that's more resolved, right? That's in key, pretty much anywhere on the fretboard. And what you can do is you can just bend and keep bending until you hear something hit correctly. A lot of our guitar heroes did that, right? Whenever they play live, you know, and you're in the heat of the moment, and sometimes you just kind of like, ooh. So it's like you just do this quick recover, right? So as long as you quickly catch yourself and you slide or bend to the correct note, not only are you going to be free and clear, But you may even pass off as like, oh, I totally meant to play that weird note because I like making your ears perk up for a second, but hey, we brought it on home. Because you can take a moment like playing a wrong note and make it seem intentional by doing this. I was talking to one of our VIP members recently, and he was saying that every time he tries to improvise, his mind just goes blank, and he was like, maybe I'm not really wired to be an improviser. He was convinced that improvising was just not really in his DNA. And you know what I did? I gave him the same exact exercise that we just went over, right? Focusing on one note, forcing yourself to make that note more interesting, and he very quickly circled back and told me that for the first time in his life, he was actually playing without thinking. Right? Because we don't have to think when we're just worried about one note. And the whole point of the one note exercise isn't meant to just keep you at the one note forever, right? But it's just to show you how to make one note count. Because if you can make one note count, imagine what you can do with 2 or 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 notes, right? There's 12 notes in music in total. So if you're able to make 12 notes sound good, that's all. That's all you need, man. The purpose of this one note exercise is to set you up, to kind of reset, right? Rewire that overthinking brain that we're dealing with. And believe me, that example is one of many in our VIP club that have had that breakthrough. And if it can happen for them, I know it can happen for you too. So today you learned exactly why your brain locks up when you're trying to improvise, how to stop overthinking with the one note exercise, how to build phrases naturally with the call and response method, why there are no wrong notes, only unresolved ones, and that if you just force your brain to make a single note count, it'll eliminate all of the thinking and put you directly into that flow state. Now imagine what happens when you take this even further, when improvising feels as natural to you as speaking does. When you can just pick up your guitar and play without freezing or second guessing or any of those other mental roadblocks that are stopping you. That's exactly why we put this free guide together for you. This is a game-changing guide on how to instantly solo in any key. It's designed to lock in the breakthroughs that you've had today and make your improvisation feel effortless. And again, this is 100% free. Just be sure to click here to claim your copy, or if you're watching this on your TV, scan that QR code or check the link that I left for you in the description box to this video. Because the sooner that you break this cycle, the sooner that you're going to unlock guitar playing that's completely free.